Yeah, for better or worse, we have the exam. It's the thing I like about university the least, but it's one of those necessary evil things. Nobody's going to study unless we have an exam, so we have to have an exam. Once we have the exam, I don't care how you do, in the sense that if you do well, that's great for you, that's nice, I like that. If you do poorly, I don't think less of you, I don't think you're a bad person, I don't think you're a bad student, I don't think you can't learn. But it's of course nicer to do well. So that's what today is about. How can you do well on the exam? Just organizationally, on Tuesday we do not have class because nobody wants class 2 hours before the exam. But if you have tutorials that day, you still have tutorials that day because there's no way you can move them elsewhere. But in your tutorial, you are allowed and encouraged to ask your tutors anything, like, you know, they don't know what's on the exam, but you know, how to answer questions and that kind of thing. Okay, so today, my dream is that you guys will have lots of questions, and you will totally take up my time with questions, and that would be great. Some brave soul will start it off. I know they will. Oh, yeah. You won't have questions. The question is, will we have questions about calculating the unemployment rate? No, we did not do that. It's a simple thing, but we just didn't do it. It's like anything else. It's simple, but complicated once you get into the details. But no, the unemployment rate's not there. Actually, it hasn't been there for years, but way back in the day, we did unemployment rate stuff. Just took away time from other things. Right? You will see calculate GDP. You will see calculate real and nominal. Well, I don't know you will, but it's fair game to ask questions about calculate nominal versus real GDP. It's fair game to ask how to calculate CPI. Yeah? No, none of the stuff on savings. I have never taught that. That was another professor. I don't see the point, but apparently there's a point. I don't know what it is, so I don't teach it.
Sorry, the question would be about calculating multiplier of tax or multiplier of imports.
Say this again?
Multiplier on tax multiplier would be the question of?
There could be. There could be, yeah, that would be fair game.
Multiplier on imports and exports, which is different formula.
So please, so the first thing, please, yeah. So in terms of multiplier, what are you expected to know? You're expected to know what the multiplier is, what the story behind the multiplier is. If I give you a particular model, meaning equations, right? Because that's our story. Story and equations are the same thing. If I give you a particular model, you should be able to calculate the multiplier. If I give you a thing that said government spending was 100 and GDP was 10,000, and then government spending turned to 200 and GDP ended up 11,000, what is the multiplier? You should be able to do that just from the story what the multiplier is. How many times bigger did GDP get compared to the multiplier, compared to the change in G itself, right? So you should be able to do that. You should be able to, if I tell you a story that we haven't seen before, and I say, does this thing make the multiplier bigger or smaller? You should be able to tell me that, right? And the way you do that is with the story. You say, government spends money, that increases output, because the barber shop cuts the hair. Then the barber feels richer, what does he do? If he changes his behavior in a big way, the multiplier will be big. If he changes his behavior in a small way, the multiplier will be small. And then there's multiple rounds of this, but you can tell it with the first round. Okay? So I can tell you a new story that you haven't seen, and you should be able to tell me, will that make the multiplier bigger or smaller? So if we have income taxes and I increase the income tax rate, does that make the multiplier bigger or smaller? You should be able to say this. Okay? Yeah, you shouldn't have it memorized, but you should be able to figure it out. In terms of formula, please, please, please do not memorize any formula. I can guarantee you any of the formulas that you see will be useless to you on the exam. Okay? I will do something not like wildly different, but different enough that it's going to come up with a different formula, because I do not care whether you know the formula. I do care that you know where the formula comes from. Okay? So in the book, there's a few different multipliers. Kind of neither here nor there. You just want to be able to calculate the multiplier the way we did, right? We have y is equal to c plus I plus g. You plug in everything you know for c, for y, for I plus g, and exports. Okay, I'm being sloppy. You plug in those formulas, and then you just solve for y. And that gives you your multiplier. That gives your equilibrium GDP. Okay? You should be able to do that for whatever sort of model I give you. Okay? Which won't be exactly the same as what you've seen before. Same enough, same enough that that same approach will work, but not same enough so that if you tattooed the formula on your hand, it would help you in any way. Okay. Yeah.
For example, I remember the last time you explained about history of money.
Yes.
And are any history-related questions that are common?
They're absolutely fair game. I have historically not asked lots of them. You'll see on the thing, because I have trouble thinking up multiple choice questions for them. But I always want to. If one inspires me, I will put it there. It is fair game, the history of money stuff, yeah. Okay. Now, the history was not super factual, right? It's not like, I'm not going to care whether you know the exact dates for things or stuff like that, right? Just do you have the big picture of where money came from and how it's so different today than it was back in the day. Back in the day, like for all of human history, right, up till 1972. Right? I know that's before you were born, and it's getting pretty close to being before when I was born, but still, human history-wise, is kind of new, right? There will be a couple of just sort of mechanical questions. If you have disability support and that kind of thing, come to the same place. We have a room separate room and all that. There will be no time limit, so you can take your time. You can spend as much time as you want. I say 1 hour just because if you're planning on having someone come pick you up or something, you should have an idea how long it will take you. I think most people will be done in 40, 50 minutes or so. Historically, almost everyone's done in an hour, but some people stay for 2 hours, and that's absolutely fine. I've looked at, some people leave after, as soon as I let people go. We do a counting of heads and stuff, and you can't leave until then, but as soon as I let people go, people are up like rabbits and gone. And some people stay for 2.5 hours, and there is no difference in grades between them. It is just styles of taking exams, so it doesn't mean anything other than you have no time limit. So take your time. Don't rush it. You've got all the time in the world. I will stay till 3 in the morning. I honestly don't mind. I got a phone. I can do things. It will be fine. You won't, but 2 hours, 3 hours, it's fine if you stay there. But if you're planning a ride, you'll be done in an hour, honestly, for a vast majority of people. If you take longer, you and do your ride accordingly. There is no negative marking, which means you should answer all the questions. There is no reason to leave a question blank. I think it's very sweet that students leave questions blank. It's like they don't want to lie to their professor, and that they don't. But that's part of multiple choice. Part of multiple choice is eliminating the answers that are wrong, that are wrong, and then guessing among the remaining ones. That's sort of the partial credit of multiple choice, right? So answer everything. If you don't know anything, guess. You'll do better than leaving it blank, right? Okay. For theory questions, you are meant to draw out the graphs, even if the graphs aren't there. Like, use the back of the page and draw things out, and do your calculations on a sheet. You're meant to have paper and pencil and use scratch paper. At the end of the day, you will be able to keep the exam sheet, so mark your answers that you did on there so that you can know what your grade is sort of immediately as when I put the answer key up. Okay, material. Talking about the exam format is kind of dull. I know people care, but it's boring for me. So, questions about material? Or format. Format's fine too. You won't need it. Like, I will be able to do the exam without a calculator. I have more practice doing algebra than most of you do. God help me. So I would bring a calculator because you will be calculating CPI. You may be asked to do real versus nominal GDP. It's easier with a calculator for a lot of people. That's probably you. You know you, but bring a calculator. You're allowed a calculator. Yeah, bring a pencil as well, because I don't have pencils for everybody, so bring a pencil, bring a calculator. Yeah, bring your brain, bring your lucky shirt. I don't know. What? Yeah. Let's put it up. What's the exam? Let's see. So, fall 2008. Let's see if we can figure this out. If you see it here, stop me. November 2008? November 2008 with the midterm with solution. Let's try that. Let's see what happens. Okay, and what question is it? 9. Okay, price of tables decreases from 500 to 400, then. Is that the one? Yeah, we did not do that. Yeah, we did not do that. I don't even know the context where that was relevant at this stage. 2008 being in the midst of time. The reason I put all these exams up is it can be useful, but the university doesn't put multiple choice exams up, and that just feels like if you know somebody who has the old exam, you have an advantage over other students. And so I just put them all there so that nobody has an advantage over anybody. But courses change over time, right? And so that just isn't there. Yeah. And honestly, I don't know how to answer because I don't know what they were on about. Yeah. I couldn't hear it all. Question 17 in the midterm February 2014. 2014. Let's go back. Okay, so we're, what year? 2014. Let's see if we can find that. If you see it, like, holler up. This one? Yes. Open a new tab. Learn. Okay, and which question? 17. Okay. This is the question? 17, sorry, not the question. Okay, I was going to start talking. Good I asked. 17. Okay, he has the following assets and liabilities. 2 cars, house, mortgage, cash, car loans, checking account balance, credit card balance. What is his wealth? We did not do this. This is not a thing we did. Okay, I mean, yeah, so you would subtract off his mortgage? Probably so, yeah. Yeah, but it's not a thing we did, right? We didn't define what wealth is, so we didn't, right? It's something that you can define in different ways, so we don't have a particular definition. Okay. Now, wealth is important to us it does show up in what we've done. We didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about how to calculate it. But if you feel wealthier, you're more likely to spend more for the given income, right? So that would change your autonomous consumption. So if you felt wealthier, say the value of your house went up, nothing really changed, autonomous consumption would go up. Yeah. What year? 2015. This one, April 2015. Oh, that's the makeup midterm. No, that's not the one you're after. So many exams. Oh, my goodness. Okay. The final exam one? Yeah. Okay, what question you're after? 14. Okay, here we go. This is not actually very helpful. Okay, given the following data for the economy, compute the value of GDP. Okay, so we're given a bunch of stuff here, and I wish, let's see if I can draw on this. I cannot. Okay, we'll make do. Okay, we're given a bunch of information, and the usual way with this stuff is to give more information than you can use, or that you should use. That's the typical, professor's trick to make a question, is to give more information. And in a sense, it's totally tricky. In another sense, in real life, you have all the information of the world, and you have to pick which one the relevant things are. So we don't think it's terribly unfair to give you more information than you need, but that is typically sort of the way these exam questions are structured, that they give you more, and you have to pick out which ones are the relevant ones. Right? And so what we're looking for is we're looking for the value of GDP, and we're given all these expenditures. So we know that this is the expenditure method. We're looking to calculate how much did people spend on Irish goods and services this year, right? And so we normally divide that into consumption, investment, government spending, net exports, right? And so what we want to look for here is those things, C plus I plus G plus net exports. So what do we got? Let's see if I can get the question right. That'll be fun. Always a drama. Okay, so we're given consumption expenditures. And that's lovely because that actually is C. That's everything in C, consumption expenditures. So we're good. We got C right there. Right off the bat, we're good to go. We got something, right? So we're going to add in that 50. Imports is part of net exports because it's exports minus imports. Government purchases of goods and services, 20, that's G. Construction of new homes and apartments, that's part of investment, right? It's not all of investment, but it's part of investment. Sales of existing homes and apartments is neither here nor there because that's stuff that wasn't made this year, and we're trying with GDP to add up not what people spent, which is an interesting thing, right? It's interesting that these houses changed hands, but that's not what GDP is about. GDP is about how much stuff did we make this year. That's the goal. And this seeing what people spent is a way to get at that, but we're not interested so much in what people spent. We're interested in how much stuff got made. And what people spent is sort of a way to get at that, right? And so the fact that people bought existing homes or homes and apartments, neither here nor there. That's completely irrelevant to the question. We can just cross it off. It's gone. And now we got exports. So now we got net exports. It's exports 50 minus imports 40. So net exports is 10. Right? Government payments to retirees. Now, this is very important, and this is part of the government budget, but it is not something that's done in exchange for goods and services. It's a gift. But it's a transfer payment, right? So it doesn't count for GDP because, again, we're trying to count up the stuff that was produced. Nothing was produced for this, right? So that's neither here nor there as well. So if you're looking at the government accounts, for instance, as you would for these things, you would want to ignore all the transfer payments. You wouldn't just look at the line item, how much did the government spend? You want how much did the government spend on goods and services. So this is irrelevant. Household purchases of durable goods. Now this is where it gets tricky, right? This is tricky. Well, there's a fair number of tricks, but this is tricky because this is part of consumption, right? If you buy a washing machine, for instance, that's part of consumption. Somebody made the washing machine, you bought it, that's great, except we already counted it up in consumption expenditures, right? So this is a part of consumption expenditures, so we should not count it because we already got the whole thing, right? So if they divided up all the consumption expenditures, we could add them up separately, but they already went to the trouble of adding them all up for us, so we can just use that final total, which is 50. Okay. Beginning of year inventory, end of year inventory, and business fixed investment. These three things together, plus the construction of new homes and apartments, those four things, that's investment, right? So business fixed investment, this is a business buys a van, or a business buys a factory, or business buys something, right? Let's go out and buy something. That's going to make them more productive, right? That's part of investment, right? If you buy a factory, clearly investment. Okay? We've also declared that new homes and apartments are also an investment. Even though they're done by human beings and not by businesses, we're still counting them as investment because they're very much related to the interest rate, which is where we're going with this monetary policy stuff, right? So that's part of investment too. The inventory, beginning of year inventory, end of year inventory, that's also part of investment. That is, you can invest in buying your own product so that you have it next year, right? So what you do is you say, how much inventory do I have at the end of the year? How much inventory did I have at the beginning of the year? So how much did I add to my inventory during the year? That's investment. But of course, that can be negative because I could have started the year with 100 in inventory and end the year with 5. And so I lost 95 of the stuff in my warehouse. That would be negative investment of 95. Right? So the inventory part here, the end of the year, we had 20. At the beginning of the year, we had 10. So we added 10 to our warehouse. That's investment in stuff that we're keeping in our warehouse. So our total investment is 30 plus the 10, right? Adding the end of year, subtracting the beginning of year, plus the new homes, which is 30. So it's 60, 70 for investment. Okay. So that's all our bits. So what do we got? And see if I get the right answer. Someone can do the math for me because I don't have a pencil here. Right, we got consumption of 50. We've got investment, we said was 70, so that's 120. Government spending, we said was 20. So that's 140. And what else did we have? Exports minus imports. So 50 minus 40. 180, did I get that right? All the math is in my head and I'm befuddled. But so don't do the math in your head. Like you have a piece of paper, write it down. But that's how you do it. Okay. Slightly tricky, right? Things are on this list just to be confusing. Okay? So you need to have a clear head about what GDP is so that you don't count up this payment to retirees. Right? You have to have a clear idea of what's already in it. When you see consumption, what's in there, what's not, this kind of thing, right? I couldn't hear.
Is it between 2050?
This one here, that's a good question. I do not know. I think so, 2014, 2015? Yeah, Spring 2015. Final exam, actually. Yeah. Midterm, February 2015. And this time, I will learn and I will download the thing so I can write on it. Can I? Yes. Word will open eventually. What question? 6. A recent report indicated that the average real wage in manufacturing declined by 2% between these years. The CPI equals something in 1990, something else in 2000, and the average nominal wage in manufacturing was 35 in 2000. What was the average nominal wage in manufacturing in 1990? What a convoluted question. Okay. Okay. So how do we go about thinking about this one, right? That's our first bit. Okay. So we have, if I can do this. I got the wage in 1990 is, let's see, 35. And what I'm wondering about is the wage in, oh, sorry, this is 2000. The wage in 90. That's the question, right? What is the wage in 1990? So how do we calculate this? And this is really a question that's a little complicated, but it's about nominal versus real things, right? So nominal things are the things just in money, and the real things are converted to a particular year's money. So like how much stuff can you buy with it? And so we're told that the real wage went down by 2%. And so if we look at the, say, real wage in 1990, that's going to be the nominal wage divided by the price level. And we can just think about this as the CPI is the cost of a basket of goods, right? They do that consumption survey. They find out what's in the basket of goods. And then they say, how much does that basket of goods cost? Now, it's been normalized so that it's equal to 100 at the beginning of in the base year. But we can really just think about it as a price. Right? So how much does it cost to buy a basket of goods? And so now we're wondering, the real wage in 1990 is how many baskets of goods can we buy? Right? So the real wage is the amount of money that we get, which is not 30, it's 35. The amount of euros that we have, we're getting paid. And we divide that by the price, which is the CPI in 1990. Sorry, this is 2000. Do I have an eraser? Life would be easier with an eraser. Start again. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, so we have the nominal wage in 2000. So the real wage in 2000 is the 35 euros we were getting paid divided by the CPI, which is 1.96. And that's the number of baskets of goods that I can buy in 2000, right? And we're told that the real wage in 1990 was, if we're going to compare it to the real wage in 2000, well, we said that the real wage was down by 2%, right? So the real wage in 2000 is 0.98 of the real wage in 1990, 2% lower than the real wage in 1990. Right? And the real wage in 2000 is equal to 35 over 1.96. Right? So, yeah, I don't know how to get that to go down. Okay, so now we've got everything we need. Right? We're wondering what the nominal wage is in 1990, so we got 0.98 times the nominal wage in 90 divided by the CPI in 90, because that's the real wage in 1990, right, is the euros I get paid divided by the price of this basket, which we're just calling the CPI. And that has to be equal to the real wage in 2000, which is 35 over 1.96. And so this is 0.98 is equal to the wage in 1990 divided, and we're given the CPI in 1990, which is 1.3. 0.3 is equal to 35 over 1.96. So now, all you got to do, and here for this one, you would definitely want a calculator. I would want a calculator. And I told you I'm going to do something. My examples will be things that I can do without a calculator, personally. So this is more complicated numbers than I'm likely to use. But mathematically, it's quite simple. That is, you just take your calculator, take 35 divided by 1.96. You multiply it by 1.3, and you divide it by 0.98. That'll give you your answer. Okay. So the crucial thing here, and the crucial thing that you should remember for the exam, because this is not quite the kind of question I'm likely to ask, the crucial thing you remember for the exam is that when we're thinking of like real wages or real GDP, we're thinking how many baskets of goods can you buy? And the consumer price index we can think of as just the price of one basket of goods. So if you say, how many Snickers bars could I buy with my wage? I got 35 divided by 1.6 euros per Snickers bar. That gives me the number of Snickers bar. So how many baskets of goods? Get my wage divided by the price of a basket of goods, which is just the consumer price index. So just think about it as a price. Just like it would be a price for a thing, it's a price for this basket of goods. Okay. Now it's been normalized and all, but that doesn't actually matter because you're comparing two dates that have been normalized in the same way. Right? So that washes out. This is one of the bad things about having all the exams up there, is you get asked questions about questions you wouldn't quite ask that way anymore. I don't even know if that was my question. Might have been, but I wouldn't do that now because people get lost not in the economics but in the rigmarole of it, right? Which, yeah. 2015? Have we done that one yet, that exam yet, or we find it? We have, so it might be open. Okay, where are we here? Not this exam. This exam, okay, and I will download it because that turned out to be a good idea. Okay, question 15. Okay. We did not touch on this. It's reasonable for you to think that this is something you could do because you're so close, but we didn't actually do what would be the risk premium and stuff. It's just about the bonds, like we saw, but we didn't play around with it in this way. Yeah. And that is one of the troubles, is that a lot of the stuff that, we didn't do, we got right up to the edge of, and we could have gone that direction but didn't. So it's easy to not know whether you're supposed to know that question or not. But yeah, this one we didn't. We never talked about risk and the pricing of stuff. Other than to say, if you thought I was dishonest, I wouldn't get as good a price for my bond. Yeah.
Is everything till the last lecture will be on the exam?
Everything up into including the last lecture. Yeah. 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 Did I open that one up yet? I don't think so. Okay, let's go back to the 2015 midterm. With the February or the? Makeup midterm, okay. Try again, midterm. Finally then, makeup midterm. 2015, this is probably it. All right, what question? 26? 6. See, look, I wasn't even the teacher. Okay, okay. 6. It doesn't mean that the information isn't worth knowing, though. Obviously, all information worth knowing comes from me, obviously. Okay, empirical evidence suggests that for most industrial countries, long-run increases in real GDP can be best explained by we did not do this, but I would like so we did not do this is the direct answer to your question. I would like to do an indirect answer to her question and talk about how to approach a question that you don't know. Because you guys have not covered this, there's no reason I would expect you to know this, but on a real exam, like on Tuesday, it may be, obviously you're going to know everything and you're going to breeze through the exam and it's going to be great. But in my experience, not being as good a student as you, I had exams where there were things I did not know. I had exams where there was almost nothing that I knew. And so how do you approach it when you don't have the full knowledge that you need to answer the question? So ideally, you just jump to the right answer because obviously. Now, one thing I should say is that on the multiple choice exams, we are looking for the best answer, not the right answer. So there can be cases where question A, the answer is right, but B is better in some way, right? So you should read all the answers. You have all the time in the world. You can spend all night. We can stay there till 6 in the morning. I do not mind. So read all the answers because that one might look right, but the other one might be clearly better in some way. Okay, so you want to read all the answers. You want to eliminate the ones that are obviously wrong. Okay? And for that, you need to use your brain. Like obviously, if you know this stuff, that's great. But if you don't know it, you need to sit down and use what you do know. And trust your instincts. What you're trying to do if you don't know the right answer is to eliminate things that you think are probably not the right answer. Right? Because then you're guessing between fewer. You're going to answer something because you should never leave it blank. There's no negative marking. There's no reason to leave it blank. And so you're trying to eliminate things so that you're guessing between 2 instead of guessing between 5, and your odds are much better then, right? Okay, so here we go. Empirical evidence suggests that for most industrial countries, long-run increases in real GDP per person can be best explained by, okay? Okay, so we didn't talk about any empirical evidence because I'm a theorist and I don't care about empirical evidence, obviously. So we didn't talk about that. Frank, he cares about empirical evidence because he's a good person. But the rest of us, not so much. So you don't know this, right? Maybe you just missed that section of the class. Yeah, the section that was, 15 years ago. But we do know some of this stuff. Right? We know real GDP per person, so we're not talking about price changes. We're actually talking about more stuff because it's real GDP, and it's per person. Right? And we're told that there's long-run increases in this thing. So people, average amount of stuff that gets produced per person in a country is going up. We're told that. How can that best be explained? And now we're just going to use, we don't know the empirical evidence because we didn't study that portion of the class. It wasn't in this class. But what can we deal with this, right? So the first one is slow growth in real wages, right? So somehow we have to be producing more stuff. And real wages is about how much people are getting paid, right? So you work in the donut shop. How many donuts per hour are you being paid? You're paid in euros, but it's real wages, so you're paid in donuts. How many donuts do you get paid? And if it was that you just got paid, your productivity maybe was producing more and you were getting paid less. This is about how the donuts get divided up, right? This doesn't determine you producing more donuts, right? And we're told that more donuts per person are being produced. The wages are just sort of how we divide up that wealth. So this seems unlikely to be it, right? If wages are going down, we would think, like, why do people work then? What's with that? If wages are going up, it's not, I mean, it could be. There could be a convoluted story, but it's not really directly related. So, like, if I knew nothing about this, I would be very suspicious of A and disinclined to guess A. Okay? I wouldn't be sure, but I'd be disinclined to guess A. It seems, okay. A sustained increase in the proportion of the population employed. Okay. Now this seems plausible, right? Because we're talking about more stuff. So more stuff is being produced. If more people are working, that's more stuff. But we're told that we have long-run increases in real GDP per person. So it's not just over a 10-year period, but it's like, year after year for hundreds of years, real GDP per person is going up. That can't be it. Right? Because you can't have more than 100% of the people working, right? And so if we start out with 1% of the people working and we add a percentage every year, pretty soon we've run out of people, right? So that cannot be the way that we get output to go up long term. So that just like sitting down and sort of thinking, what does per person mean and per capita mean? And you can say we can really safely eliminate the proportion of the population employed. Now that's a thing for Ireland, right? As we went from the 70s to now, over the last 50 years, women started working. They weren't working, well, they were working, but they weren't working in the market before. And so, yeah, that's a thing that happened in Ireland. But we're kind of out of women, I'm just saying. And we had, like, everyone's working now. So that's not going to sustain us going forward, right? All right. Sustained population growth. This seems like, if you're not thinking, this seems plausible, right? Because more people, more stuff. But if you're thinking, we're told that it's real GDP per person. So that doesn't really make, it makes the economy bigger, but it also doesn't make more per person, right? So that's implausible as well, okay? Just using, like not panicking. One of the big things here, government policies to promote growth and a sustained increase in average labor productivity. This is vague enough that one worries about it, but it's a reasonable guess. And E, of course, is the right answer. So you can reasonably, just by keeping cool and just by really reading the question and saying, what do I know about these things? You can get it down typically to 2. Because we are not geniuses at writing questions. Like, it's easy to come up, once you know a material, it's pretty easy to write a question and to write the right answer. It's quite difficult to write wrong answers because you know the right answer, and it's very difficult to see where people go wrong. So typically these questions will have maybe 1 or 2 reasonable wrong answers, and the rest are kind of ridiculous wrong answers, and they will be put into some kind of jargony thing to make it sound plausible. But if you keep your wits about you, you can usually eliminate at least 1, and typically 2 or 3, just based on logic and knowing what the words mean more or less. So I know some people are very prone to panic in exams, and this is unfortunate because they don't show their actual knowledge in the test, and that's really difficult. I would urge you, particularly, you have all the time in the world, so there's no need to, you can reread it 15 times. So as you're taking a multiple choice test, here's my advice to you. I am so good at multiple choice. If the world was based on multiple choice, I would be your king. I can go into an exam knowing nothing. If it's multiple guess, I can guess my way to freedom. But Irish students less so, because you had less practice with them, right, in high school and all. So as you're taking a multiple choice exam, the strategy is read through it, read the answers, read all the answers. If you know the answer, answer it, move on, life is good. If you don't know the answer, think about it a little bit, don't obsess, think about it a little bit, circle it, come back to it. Because there hasn't been that much material. Even with only 15 questions, there is a high likelihood that one of the other questions gives you hints. Very, very likely that happens. So people want to go home? Okay, yeah.